Today, I want to jump into the topic of, does God treat people differently? Like, does he expect different from us depending on our understanding? And how does that shape the way that we treat others, specifically non believers? Right. So, one of the major stories that I read about, or two major stories that I read about that kind of addresses this, is in Luke chapter 1, where Luke introduces Zechariah, the priest, who is John the Baptist's father, right? So the angel of the Lord comes to Zacharias and he says, "Hey, you're fixing to have a son. Your wife's going to get pregnant. Like, he's going to be, this man who can't drink wine, who, has to be basically like the oath of the Nazarene oath or whatever, where they can't drink wine or touch grapes or nothing like that." And Zacharias is like, "That's impossible. I'm old. My wife is old. We can't have kids," right? And then you have Mary in that situation that she's in, where the angel comes to her and tells her basically the same thing. "Hey, you're fixing to have a son. He's going to be the savior of the world," right? And she's like, "How can this be? I'm a virgin. I don't know the touch of a man," right? The way the angel responds to each of them should teach us something about what God expects and how God treats people differently, right? So to the high priest, the angel of the Lord, in fact, let's read it. Luke chapter 1. So Luke chapter 1, verse 18, "And Zechariah said to the angel, how shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife is well advanced in years." And the angel answered and said to him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and was sent to speak to you and bring you these glad tidings. But behold, you will be mute and not be able to speak until the day these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their own time." So that's how the angel responds to Zacharias. It's like judgment, boom. Like, you're mute now. You know what I mean? Like, you can't talk anymore, like, for doubting and for questioning. So, and then you look at Mary and her and what happened with her in the same chapter, right? You go to verse 34. "Mary said to the angel, 'How can this be, since I do not know a man?' And the angel answered and said to her, 'The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the highest will overshadow you. Therefore, also, that the Holy One who is to be born will be called the Son of God.'" And then the angel tells her about Elizabeth. "Now, indeed, Elizabeth, your relative, who has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month of her who was called barren. For with God nothing will be impossible." Then Mary said, "Behold, the maidservant of the Lord, let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. So with Zacharias, it's judgment, right? And that's it. Like, if you read, right? So Zacharias' judgment, right? On verse 20, it tells him he's going to be mute. Verse 21, so right after verse 21, it says that the people marveled because he was there for so long. And then 22, he could not speak to them, and they're like, "Whoa," right? Versus Mary, right? The angel answers her after she doubts. She answers her in 35, right? Says that he will be called the Son of God. And then in 36, he continues and he says, so with Zacharias, he stops. He's like, "Because you doubted, you're mute until all these things happen. Because I'm Gabriel." He's like, "I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and you doubted me," right? With Mary, he doesn't stop there. He says, "The Holy One, the Holy Spirit will come upon you." Tells him all that in verse 35. Verse 36, he continues and he gives her testimony, basically, right? He gives her a testimony to increase her faith, right? "Now, indeed, Elizabeth," verse 36, "now indeed, Elizabeth, your relative, has also conceived in her old age, and is now in her 6th month for her who was called barren." Like, with Zacharias, he got judgment. With Mary, she got a testimony of what is possible. And I have to ask myself, like, man, why such a different outcome? Right? And the truth is that Zacharias was a priest. He should know better. It's one of those, right? It's one of those situations. Like, he should know better. Like he knows the Torah front and back, because back then I believe that men were taught the Torah, memorized it. I think they memorized the first 5 books of the Bible, which is the Torah, but they memorized it word for word. They knew it front and back. So he knows better. So he knows Genesis, like he knows Abraham, he knows Sarah, he knows that they bore Isaac in an older age. Like he knows what's possible from the Lord. Like he knows these things. And it's almost like when he asked the question, how can this be? It wasn't like what, like why, like it was like there was like a cynicism behind it where he's like, come on, man, really? You know what I mean? Like he's like, come on, like I'm old, my wife's old. Seriously, you know what I mean? It's like there's like a cynicism behind it. Versus with Mary, it was more like a wonder. Like, what? Like, wow, you know what I mean? Because he's not the high priest, but he's the priest, and he should know better. Mary, she was a teenager. I think a lot of biblical scholars uh and their consensus is that she was maybe 14, something like that. Something, I mean, 14, 13, something like that. I can't remember, but she was young, right? And so she doesn't know much about the world, especially back then, man. There was no, it's not like it is today. Like social media wasn't a thing. There's no, there's not much technology, like nothing like that, man. A lot of uh like kids didn't grow up so fast like today. Um so she didn't know much. She didn't know much about the world. Like she was still, young. And so when she asked the question, how could this be? It's more like a wonder. It's more like, whoa, whoa, like how? You're like, whoa, you know what I mean? She wasn't doubting. She wasn't a cynic. Like she wasn't, yeah, she was in wonder. She was in awe. She's like, whoa, how? Because she even goes on to say, may it be what may the words that you said, may they be, you know what I mean, as you said. So I think there's a major difference there as far as how God responded to each of these people, because one was a priest, should have known better. The other one wasn't. Like she didn't know much, you know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting to me that as believers today, we pretty much treat everybody like the high priest, right? We treat them like they should know. Uh, we unbelievers, especially unbelievers, um, we always, sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes, but we always look at them um, like they are like they are knowledgeable about everything in the Word of God. We expect the world to act Christ-like, man. It just, to me, is unreal, right? So now there's believers, that should know better and should act and behave in a different way, right? And I believe that I mean, that's sad to me sometimes to watch believers not display the fruit of the spirit. You know what I mean? So it kind of, man, it hurts my feelings sometimes to see that happen. But they should know better. Like I believe the judgment for them will be a lot greater than for those in the world. There's a verse in the Bible also that says that it'd be better to, tie a boulder to your foot and cast yourself into the ocean than to have known the things of God and walked away, or something like that. But I think I'm getting my verses confused there. But basically saying like it's better to, like, sometimes it's better to not to have even known of the word and of the Lord than those, that than to know and then walk away from it. You know what I mean? So um some scriptures that I got down here, some Bible verses. So you look at Samuel, the book of Samuel, First Samuel 16:7 says that the Lord looks at the heart, right? Man looks at the body or the flesh or whatever. But um speaking of that one too, man. So you see the differences between Saul and David and how God responded to them, right? Both of them. Uh, they were both kings. They both messed up, right? So in the eyes of man, in the eyes of man, what David did was worse than what Saul did in the eyes of man, right? So if you look at it, King Saul, he disobeyed, he was rebellious, and he went to please the people. Samuel told him to kill everybody, kill everybody, don't keep nothing for yourselves, destroy, kill their animals, kill their women, kill their children. God tells him that. So instead, Saul, because he listened to his men who wanted to keep slaves, who wanted to keep the women, who wanted to keep their, goats and lambs or whatever they had. So and even the king, instead of just killing the king, like he like kept them alive, right? And then so he disobeys the word of the prophet, and then keeps the king alive, and then goes to sacrifice, goes to do a sacrifice for to the Lord himself instead of waiting on Samuel, right? And it's mostly because the people were getting, they're getting, they're impatient, and so he goes to do that, and they're like, "Man, you're the king." They talk they talk him into it, like, "You're the king, man. You do this." So he rebels against the Lord by not doing what the prophet told him to do, and then listening to the people, right? And then you go, and the Lord is harsh with him. He's like, "Yo, because you've done this, like your family line is like, you lost the kingdom. Like you're no longer gonna be, your family's not gonna be king, and so forth and so on." Right? And then you look at King David. So King David goes and he sees Bathsheba, finds her attractive, sleeps with her, gets her pregnant, and then when he gets her pregnant, he brings her husband, who's his friend as well, brings her husband back from war, tries to get him to sleep with his wife, right? So he's trying to cover it up. So he's trying to get his buddy to go sleep with his wife so that the truth isn't revealed because she's pregnant, right? But this dude is so honorable that he's like, "Nah, man, I'm not gonna do that. My boys, my partners over here, like they're out at the war, so I'm not gonna like be out here living it up while they're out there, suffering." Right? Because that's how much honor he had. Like to the point that he didn't even go home. He slept outside. Like he wasn't about that. You know what I mean? He was fixing to honor his people. He's gonna do right. He's just just an honor. Like he just did that. So he doesn't do that. So David's plan fails. He doesn't go sleep with his wife. So that she was pregnant, they're gonna find out. So David tells the general, "Hey, put homeboy in the front lines, right? Put him in the front because he was hoping to get him killed, right?" So puts him in the front. He gets killed, right? And then takes Bathsheba as his wife because she's pregnant by him. So the prophet Nathan comes to him and tells him a story. This man has this many sheep and this much land, and then he goes to this one. He's only got one, and he kills that man and takes the sheep for himself. And then David's like, "Well, where is this guy? We got to take him out, man. We got to go, serve justice. This is not right." And Nathan's like, "You are the man." The response from both kings is different, right? King Saul is like, "Restore me in the eyes of the people. Let's make this right," this and that. David's response was, "Restore me in the eyes of God. Restore me in the eyes of God." And that was the response to both situations, right? So in the physical, right, today, like if we saw that today, we would kill, or we would socially, or cancel, let's use the word cancel, we would cancel David for his sexual misconduct and for murdering somebody, right? He'd be canceled, thrown in prison, whatever. But if it was just a sexual sin, like we would cancel that dude, right? Versus King Saul, who in appearance, right? In appearance, he didn't do anything wrong. In appearance, he was just he rebelled, but it's not as bad as murder or adultery, right? Think about it. But the response from God to both of these guys was completely different, right? King Saul loses the kingdom, right? He gets killed, his sons get killed in war, and he kills himself from that, right? So that, imagine that judgment. King David, like, he doesn't lose the kingdom. The Lord, he's restored to the Lord. His lineage continues to, they keep the kingdom for years, for generations. And so Jesus comes from that lineage, you know what I mean? And so you consider that, like, why did God judge so differently here? You know what I mean? And a lot of it was the heart posture, right? King David's heart posture was a man after God's own heart, versus Saul. Like, he wanted to please the people. You know what I mean? He was there for the status. He was there for the, he was for it, man. He was there for the luxury. He was there for, the name, the just the what it meant to be king. Like, he wasn't, so, which is interesting, right? The way that the Lord responds to that, man. Let me look at some more of my notes, man, see what we got. Also in Luke 12:48 says, to whom much is given, much will be required. So, like, the more knowledge you acquire, the more you know, right? You've heard it said to you before. If you know better, you do better, kind of thing. So once you know right from wrong, for example, if the Lord reveals to you that you're in sin in an area in your life and you continue to sin, then you're opening yourself up to more judgment, versus you're in sin and you don't quite know that you're in sin. Then the Lord is a lot more gracious with you with that. You know what I mean? So that's always important to understand. And also, like, I don't know, just the biblical principle of stewardship, right? So if the Lord has blessed you with, finances or talents or something like that, you steward that by, taking care of, make sure you do it right. As far as stewardship goes, because to whom much is given, much will be required. Meaning, like, the Lord has blessed you with a certain, let's say, finances, because that's always a big topic. Let's say the Lord has blessed you with a lot of finances. Now, if you go and squander it and blow it on parties or whatever, beer or drugs or whatever it may be, you know what I mean? You just kind of blow your money. You don't invest. You don't put money back. You don't take care of it like you're supposed to. Then when he comes, he's going to be like, yo, I gave you, you know what I mean? It's like the parable of the talents. Like, I gave you a talent and you squandered it. You know what I mean? And so much more is expected from you when God gives you. So the more that he gives you, the more he expects, right? So if he gives you more understanding as far as in the Bible or anything like that, like, he's going to expect you to, like, change and behave and just be different. You know what I mean? He's going to expect a lot more from you. If the Lord is giving you a revelation of love, then he's going to expect you to be more loving. Does that make sense? Let me check out some more. Some of my notes here. So Matthew 9:36, compassion for the crowds. Like, so Matthew 9, let's look at it. Matthew 9:36. Bear with me, guys. Sorry. All right, Matthew 9:36. Oh, 35. Let's say 35 through 38. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is truly plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. So the Lord he's always moving with compassion for people. And then even when he was being crucified, he cries out and he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You know what I mean? And it's that understanding again, it comes into play there. So these people don't know what they're doing and they're acting out. Don't judge, basically saying, forgive them. Don't judge them too harshly, or don't judge them for they don't know what they're doing. So we see Jesus and the way he treated people differently. So he was gentle with those who were spiritually ignorant. Um, like forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. He was patient with them as they grow, like he was patient with people as they grow. Um, like in John 16:12, it says that he was basically like he was teaching, and then he's like, man, I have a lot more to say, but you can't bear it. You won't get it. Like, and they were barely getting what he was saying in there to begin with, you know what I mean? Um, and you see how he treats, like you see how Jesus treats the disciples as he's discipling them, and just how they didn't get it, but yet he was so kind and so patient with them, you know what I mean? And yeah, he did get a little harsh sometimes. He calls Peter, Satan at one point, um, but you see him and how he how he was patient with them, he was compassionate with them, he's they're in the boat, and the sea, I mean the ocean, the waters are raging, the wind's blowing, and he's taking a nap, and they're terrified, you know what I mean? And they wake him up, and he calms the seas in the storms, you know what I mean? But you see how he was like, man, why did you know what I mean? Like basically saying like, why did you wake me up? Like, and then um so to the disciples, he was patient. He just kept, man, they just didn't get it at the time. They were terrified in the boat, and he's like, "Why are you scared?" They felt like they're fixing to die, but the Son of God is taking a nap. They're like, so they just didn't get it. They didn't understand. Or like when he says, "Beware of the leaven of Pharisee and Herod." Beware the leaven of Herod and the Pharisees. Like they reasoned with themselves, like, did we forget the food? Did somebody bring bread? You know what I mean? 'Cause they didn't know what he was talking about. They didn't fully understand or grasp it. Um, what's interesting though is that the people that he was harsh to were those who were proud and arrogant, specifically the Pharisees, because they know the word, like they knew the law, they knew, they knew what's up. Like, so he was harsh to those guys. The woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, he calls them hypocrites, and that's in Matthew 23. Um, John 9:41 says, if you were blind, you would not be guilty, but now you say you see, so your guilt remains. So he wasn't just reacting to like their behavior or how they acted and stuff like that, but it was a heart issue. Um, he was reacting to the way that they act, to what they had in their own hearts. You know what I mean? And that's what he says, like hypocrites, like you put on a burden on the people that you yourself can't carry, and that was a major today still, man, it's a major thing that Christians tend to put on a burden uh on people like that don't know, they don't have the revelation, or they just don't know better. And we expect people in the world to behave like Christians, and it's like, why would you expect that from the world? You know what I mean? And it's true that I have met atheists that seem to show more of the fruits of the spirit than Christians do. You know what I mean? And in that case, man, it's like, who would the Lord judge more harshly? The atheist for not believing in him, or the Christian for not behaving like him? You know what I mean? So I wonder that a lot of times. Um, but there is um there is a I don't know, there is a tension there, right? Because like people need to know that they're in sin. Like people need to know that has to be something that we talk about, is living in sin, be trying to be righteous. But the word does say that be holy, for I am holy, the Lord says. Um, but at the same time, and you got um, Paul, 1 Corinthians 5:12-13, Paul says it is not our job to judge those outside of the church. So it's very, you know, um, it's a good verse because it lets us know that we're not supposed to sit here And by judgment, I believe that word is more like a condemning, like give judgment, as in like the judge that says you're going to be sentenced, or you know what I mean, this much time, that kind of judgment. We are called to judge as far as like that's not right or this is wrong, right? Like that is something we're supposed to do. But as far as like giving out judgment to people, as you know what I mean, sentencing them to hell, condemning people, like that's not our place, you know. So um being patient with baby believers, like that's a very important um it's a very important just principle, right? So Galatians 6:1 talks about restoring people with gentleness. Romans 14:1, don't argue or over disputable matters. I think that's a big deal right now in the church today. The body is always, we're just arguing about the non-essentials. You know, is Christmas pagan? Is Easter pagan? Should we uh, celebrate Christmas or not? You know what I mean? I know brothers that they won't even go eat at a Chinese buffet because they got Buddhas in there. You know what I mean? Like, so, and you know, and they'll they'll judge, you know, others for doing so. I don't know, man. You know what I mean? But it's just there's, I mean, disputable things that are non-essential. I believe these are non-essentials. Like Christmas and stuff, or political parties, man. Like you know what I mean? Like I heard a man who I do respect a lot. You know, really respect this man, and he's even a deacon at his local church, and he said one day to me, like, if you're not voting Republican and you're voting Democrat, are you even a Christian? And I was like, man, bro, like it's that serious, huh? You know, um, and everybody has their reasons why they would right vote one way or another, whatever that may be. But um, I don't think it's a I don't think it should cause a schism between brethren. You know what I mean? Like there's another church split fixing to happen over politics. But um, the major point right here would be to judge yourself more than you judge others. Titus 3:2-5. Let's read that real quick. Titus 3. Titus. Titus 3:2-5. Check it out. All right. To speak evil of no one. Well, let's start with one, right? Titus 3, verse 1, remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility to all men. For we ourselves were also once foolish, disobedient, deceived, serving various lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another. Facts, right? This is the Bible. Doesn't get more facts than that, right? But yeah, man. So you have to remember, man, where you like where you come from, like where you're coming from, like where the Lord rescued you from. You know what I mean? Like me personally, like I can't look at somebody in the world, specifically non-believers. I can't look at them and just completely be like, man, they're condemned. You know, I'm not finna sit out there at you know, go downtown and have a speakerphone and be out there just yelling, you're going to hell. Like I can't just do that, you know, because I come from like, man, bro, like I told to one of my brothers that at one point I was out here trying to be Tony Montana, bro. Like I was trying to be Scarface. Like, you know, I was trying to make money selling drugs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I can't just judge out here, like just judge harshly, man. I have to always remember that how gracious and how loving the Lord was with me. You know what I mean? And even after finding the Lord, man, you know, I grew up in Houston, in the south, in the southeast of Houston, and so we had this couple that would come by and pick us up, scoop. I mean, they come through the hood and pick up kids and take them to church. You know what I mean? And uh, so I've been, you know, kind of like in and out of church. Didn't have any fully understanding even at that age. Like I knew the Lord, like I felt the Lord. I felt like relationship with Him, but I wasn't like mentally. I wasn't right. Like it was wild, man. As I was out there like selling drugs and doing stuff like that, and in my brain, because my mom was an old Pentecostal, you know what I mean? In my brain, I was like, well, my mom was praying for me. The people at this church are praying for me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be out here doing dirt, but the Lord got my back. That was my mentality. Like God's got my back. I'm out here doing dirt, but God is with me. I'm selling drugs, yo. And in my brain, I'm thinking the Lord is with me because things would happen where I could get shot at, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I would survive and I would live. There's times I got pulled over, you know what I mean? Wouldn't get arrested. I mean, I'd been pulled over with drugs, and like I saw, and I don't know, man, maybe it was a miracle. I have no idea, but I hid my weed in a speaker hole, right? The cop, like the officer, looks right in it, looks at like he looks in there with his flashlight, right? I don't know if he didn't see it. I don't know what happened, man, but it looked like he didn't see it, which I don't see how, yo. It was like a quarter pound of marijuana stuffed into the speaker hole in a cup, actually. It was in a cup. The cup was in the speaker hole. I put it in there. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know, man. I don't know. You know what I mean? The Lord, I feel like the Lord just took care of your boy. You know what I mean? Um, so I should have been arrested or something should have happened, yo. But um, so I can't forget that, man. I can't ever forget that. How gracious and loving the Lord has been with me throughout my whole life, yo. Like my whole life, He's been that way with me, man. Like it's just He draws me with cords of love, yo. Anyways, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Sorry. Um, anyway, so always like look at yourself first, take the plank out of your eye so you can then remove the speck out of your brother's eye. Um, it's very important, man. And so a lot of times we can get self-righteous. I did go through that too, gave my life to Jesus, and I became super legalistic, like super self-righteous. Like I was fasting just to be able to say that I fasted. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't even fasting to like grow in Christ. Like I was fasting to be like, yeah, man, I'll be fasting, bro. I was like the Pharisees, you know what I mean? Like I was, I wouldn't brush my teeth, but breath smelled bad because I was fasting. But that breath, it's breath smells when you don't eat, anyways. But but yeah, man, I'm super legalistic, man. I was out there like, yo, this is pagan. One time I was preaching at this church and they had a Israeli flag up there, and at the time I went into this rabbit hole about the pentagram, the hexagram, and all these other things like that. And so everything was witchcraft to me, man. So I read that the Star of David is used in witchcraft to put hex on people and stuff like that. So, man, I'm at this church preaching, man, trying to, spread the word and stuff like that. And I started attacking this flag. Like, I'm like, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all got this thing up here. This is witchcraft. The Star of David is witchcraft. I'm just like going like that, bro. And it was like, man, and they were so gracious, bro. Like they, I don't know, man. Someone should have corrected me. Someone should have stopped me and been like, hey, brother, like you can't be out here like this, man. But anyways, but they were so gracious, man. They kind of just, I don't know. They were like, man, this guy's full of seal. We just got to give him time to kind of like, grow and learn here. So I don't know if that was, the deal was there, but yeah, man, I was out there wilding, man. Like even as a believer, you know what I mean? Telling people that earrings are pagan, wedding bands are pagan. Like I was I was going too far, bro. But yeah, so as far as all of this goes, man, we can't expect the world to behave like Christians do. Like, don't be surprised because the world acts like the world. Like, it's just, you know, is what it is at that point. But um, just remember to always try to understand like what people understand and don't understand. Ask questions, be curious. You know what I mean? And something I've learned a lot too, especially after being so legalistic, was that like um instead of like coming back with just hard scripture, right? So somebody would say, well, this, and that. And I'll be like, well, it says in Leviticus this and that. You know what I mean? So instead of just coming back that way, maybe ask questions. If somebody you don't agree with, if you're talking to an atheist, man, a lot of times the reason they're so uh, challenging is because we're being challenging as well, man, or they're expecting us to be that way. You know what I mean? Instead, ask questions, man. Find out where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Don't debate for the sake of debate. Like, don't debate. In fact, I don't even believe that debating is a good thing, but to each his own, brother. But because I've never seen anybody get converted from a debate. I mean, personally, me, I don't know. Maybe you guys have. Should drop a comment, let me know. Tell me that testimony. But um, for me, what I've learned is be more curious than anything. I think Tim Ross says that a lot too, man. Like, I watch his podcast a lot at the basement, and he talks about being more curious than anything. So anytime I'm talking to an atheist or whoever it is, whatever denomination or whatever other religion, Buddhist, whatever, Muslim, doesn't matter. Be more curious, you know what I mean? And being more curious, you'll start asking questions and you'll start to understand where people are coming from and where their heart is. You know what I mean? Because that's what the Lord is looking at. The Lord is looking at their heart. I had a atheist that I was working with before, and he straight up one day was like, "Look, man, I heard about you. Like, just want you to know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So, just don't come over here with all that." And my response was like, "Nah, man, you're good, bro. I'm not gonna sit here and just attack you and you know what I mean, treat you like that just because you're an atheist, yo. It is what it is." I was like, "Don't worry about it. It's all good, man." And anyways, man, months later, and I work in the oil field, man. I do flow back, and we're rigging up this drill out, and he starts complaining about his back. He said, my back is hurting, bro." I was like, "Man." And I was like, well, let me pray for you real quick, bro. I was like, sit on the tailgate real quick. I did the whole thing. My buddy Byron was like, he was like, "Who do you think you are, bro? Todd White or what?" I was like, "Ah." But anyways, I had him sit on the tailgate of the truck, and then I, prayed for his legs, and his legs extended. His back pain was completely gone. He was fully healed. He couldn't believe it. I mean, he's because, man, what the bleep, 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 he's cussing it up, bro. But and he's an atheist. Like, he doesn't believe in this at all. Like, I don't know what happened in his life or what caused that to happen or whatever, man. But I wasn't gonna win him over to the Lord through debate, right? So in this opportunity the Lord gave me, I was able to pray for him, show him some love, right? So while we're rigging down this job, you know, getting ready to leave, and then get off that location, go to the next one. But he was headed home, and we're in West Texas. He lived in East Texas, and he was about 6 to 7 hours away from where, or eight, actually 8 hours away from home. So, anyways, we get off of work. I'm headed back to my trailer because I'm staying out there, and he's headed home, and I'm staying. I'm still because I got another job to go to. And then, man, like I think it's like 5 hours after that happened, like I get a phone call from him, and he's like, "Hey, man, I just want you to know, bro, that on my drive home, I just gave my life to Jesus Christ." Like, come on, man. I was so, I was so happy. I was so excited, man. But imagine if I had been more judgmental towards him or treated him any kind of different way, or you know what I'm saying? Like, just always arguing with him. If I would have asked him to let me pray for him that day, he might have been like, "Nah, man, get away from me, bro. I don't want nothing to do with you." You know what I mean? Anyways, I say all that to say, man, just consider how you treat people, consider how you interact with them, especially non-believers. And if you're a believer and you're dealing with baby believers too, man, just understand, like we were all there at one point. You know what I mean? Like, I've been to church camps where I come back from church camp from a spiritual high, and I'm thinking, like, why ain't nobody matching my energy? You know what I mean? But so just keep that in mind, guys. Like, man, like, be aware of how you treat others, man, and just consider how God would treat them, how Jesus would treat them, like, and how he would treat you. Like, a lot more is expected from you if you're a believer, and you know more. Like Paul says in one of his letters, he's like, "Man, you guys should be teachers by now. Like, y'all should be teaching this stuff." You know what I mean? He's like, "Y'all should be on spiritual meat, but you're still on spiritual milk." But just keep that in mind, guys. I gotta get going. I gotta be on location here in about an hour. But anyways, love y'all. Uh, Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, man. Let me know what you think. Let me hear some testimonies. I love testimonies. This is my favorite thing ever. Testimonies, man. Love them. But anyways, love you guys. Be blessed. Peace out.